أهلا بيك في حلقة جديدة من كورس تعلم اللغة الإنجليزية على زي أمريكان إنجلش، القناة رقم 1 في العالم في تعليم اللغة الإنجليزية. دي الحلقة 12 من السلسلة الخاصة بالمستوى الرابع في منهج زي أمريكان إنجلش. الشرح في السلسلة دي بيكون إنجليزي بس لأن المستوى الرابع ده متقدم. لو ده مش مستواك يا ريت تجيب الكورس بالترتيب الصحيح من خلال التطبيق المجاني بتاعنا. خليك معايا. Hey there! Welcome back to our series on idioms. In case you missed the previous lessons, an idiom is a group of words whose meaning cannot be understood from the literal definition of the words. Today we have some more interesting idioms to learn. So let's dive right in. First idiom. Have you ever been in a situation where you narrowly avoided a disaster or a close call? You might say that you made it in the nick of time. This means that you arrived or acted at the last possible moment to prevent something bad from happening. The origins of this phrase are uncertain, but one theory is that the word nick comes from the Old English word nicker, meaning a demon, which was believed to drag people underwater at the last moment, and thus being saved from that meant being in the nick of time. Some example sentences using this idiom are: I was running late for the meeting, but I made it in the nick of time. The firefighters arrived in the nick of time and were able to put out the fire before it spread. He managed to catch the train in the nick of time, just as the doors were closing. So, do you think you've got the hang of this idiom? Stick around for the next ones and see if you can catch them in the nick of time. Check something at the door. Have you ever heard someone say, check your ego at the door? Well, that's the idea behind this idiom. When we tell someone to check something at the door, we're telling them to leave that thing behind and not let it affect what's happening now. Usually, this idiom is used in a professional or social setting. For example, let's say you're in a meeting with your boss and some colleagues. One of your colleagues is always interrupting others and trying to make himself sound smarter than everyone else. You might say, "Hey, Jerry, can you check your ego at the door? We're all here to work together." "Hey, Jerry, can you check your ego at the door? We're all here to work together." Or maybe you're at a party and your friend keeps talking about how much money he makes and how great his job is. You might say, "Dude, can you check your privilege at the door? Nobody here cares about how much money you make." "Dude, can you check your privilege at the door? Nobody here cares about how much money you make." In both of these examples, checking something at the door means leaving behind an attitude or mindset that's not helpful or appropriate for the situation. It's a way of saying, let's all be on the same level and work together without any unnecessary distractions or ego trips. Now, let's move on to the third idiom that is sure to make you think twice before speaking your mind. Have you ever heard someone say, "You've got another thing coming"? This means that if someone believes something to be true but is actually false, then they have another thing coming. It's often used to challenge someone's beliefs or opinions. The origins of this idiom can be traced back to the 19th century, when it was first used in a poem. It was originally, "If that's what you think, you have another thing coming," and was later shortened to its current form. This idiom is commonly used in everyday conversations, especially when someone thinks they are right about something, but they are actually wrong. For example, if someone says they can easily complete a difficult task, you might respond by saying, "You've got another thing coming," to imply that it will be harder than they think. Now that you know the meaning and origins of this idiom, let's move on to the next one. Our final idiom for today is, "You go to your church and I'll go to mine." This is a saying that is often used to express the idea that different people have different opinions and beliefs, and that's okay for them to disagree. The origins of this phrase can be traced back to the early 1600s, when different religious groups were competing for power and control. People used this expression to acknowledge that they held different beliefs than their neighbors, and that they respected each other's right to worship in their own way. In modern times, this idiom is often used to acknowledge that people have different viewpoints or opinions, and that it is important to respect those differences. For example, you might use this expression when you're having a debate with a friend and realize that you have fundamentally different beliefs. Saying, "You go to your church and I will go to mine," is a way of acknowledging that you both have different opinions and that it is okay to agree to disagree. Now, let's take some more examples about each of those idioms before I quiz you on them. 1. In the nick of time. I arrived at the airport just in the nick of time and managed to catch my flight. The doctor saved his life by arriving in the nick of time. He finished his exam in the nick of time before the bell rang. 2. Check something at the door. I know you don't like him, but you need to check your personal feelings at the door. Let's forget about our work problems and check them at the door before going to the party. The boss asked us to check our egos at the door before entering the meeting. 3. You've got another thing coming. He thinks he can skip work tomorrow and not get caught, but he's got another thing coming. If she thinks she can just walk in here and take over, she got another thing coming. They think they can win the game easily, but they've got another thing coming. 4. You go to your church and I will go to mine. Let's agree to disagree and remember that you go to your church and I'll go to mine. I know you like pop music, but I prefer classical music. You go to your church and I'll go to mine. They may prefer a different approach, but we will stick with our method. You go to your church and I will go to mine. Now that we've covered all 4 idioms, let's take a quick quiz to see how much you've learned. What does the idiom "in the nick of time" mean? B. At the last possible moment. What does the idiom "check something at the door" mean? C. To forget about something for the time being. What does the idiom "you've got another thing coming" mean? A. You're mistaken. What does the idiom "you go to your church and I will go to mine" mean? A. Let's agree to disagree. And with that, we've come to the end of this lesson on 4 common idioms. I hope you found this lesson to be informative and enjoyable. Don't forget to practice using these idioms in your own conversations and stay tuned for our next lesson where we'll cover even more idioms. Thanks for watching and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.